This presentation's purpose is to compare the sexual norms and practices between Kenya and the United States. Sexuality is defined as an individual's capacity for sexual feelings. Culture is defined as the arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively. Kenya is a country in East Africa with a population of approximately 48 million. It consists of 13 different ethnic groups. The official languages are English and Kiswahili. There is an increased population growth due to more adolescent pregnancies. This is an unhealthy growth due to not enough resources for people like jobs. More than 40% of Kenya's population is under the age of 15 due to early marriages, adolescent pregnancies, and poor family planning programs. Kenya's government has put more emphasis on the HIV epidemic and less on sex education programs. Sex education in Kenya is mostly taught in primary schools where children are between the ages of 7 and 14. 96% of children have received sex education by the time they completed primary school. This is more effective due to higher levels of enrollment compared to secondary school. Also, it is more effective because most adolescents have already had sex and/or are pregnant by the time they reach secondary school. 3/4 of schools have peer educators teach sexuality education because Kenyan teachers are not trained to teach that subject. Sex education is taught in life skills and/or biology class. Abstinence is the primary message taught. Abstinence education focuses on teaching not engaging in sex is the only way to prevent pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. So Kenyans are not taught about safe sex and contraceptive use. The average age of initiation of sex is 14 years old. This young age increases the prevalence of sexually transmitted infections, unplanned pregnancies, and dropping out of school. Due to the lack of contraceptive education, about 59% of all pregnancies have been unplanned. Also, due to the lack of this education, there are high HIV rates. Polygamy is legal in Kenya, so most marriages have multiple wives. Cohabitation and marriage is not clearly distinguishable because of polygamy. Most Kenyans do not cohabitate because they do not believe in sex outside of marriage. 5.4% of the Kenya population have HIV/AIDS, and married women are less likely to have multiple partners than unmarried women. Kenya uses various types of media such as television, internet, music, newspaper, radio, social media, etc. 78% of sexuality is portrayed on television programs. In 2016, there were 21 million internet users and 5 million were Facebook users. Kenyans spend more than 6.5 hours a day surfing the internet on their phones. Sex education in the United States is taught in schools usually in grades 7 through 12. Unless the child is homeschooled, then it is up to their family to decide. All students, unless their parents opt them out, are taught either abstinence education or comprehensive sex education. Comprehensive sex education includes education about abstinence, but also discusses topics like contraceptive use and sexuality. Each state has its own individual sex education legislation, which will determine how and when sex education is taught. Sex education is taught by teachers and/or public health professionals. Regardless of who teaches sex education in schools, the sex education curriculum must align with the Department of Health's standards. The average age of initiation of sex is 17 years old, and U.S. citizens usually don't marry until their mid-20s. A CDC 2013 survey of high school students found that 47% of them had sexual intercourse. U.S. has the highest rate of teen pregnancies compared to other Western industrialized countries. Approximately 300,000 women aged 15 to 19 gave birth in 2013. 15 to 24-year-olds make up 20 million of the newly diagnosed sexually transmitted infections annually. 70% of women with a high school diploma cohabitate with their partner, compared to only 47% of women with a bachelor's degree or higher. This shows there is a correlation with education and cohabitation rates. On the left, it shows the average number of minutes daily a U.S. citizen spends on each media platform. Watching television, 238 minutes, cell phone use, 197 minutes, online use, 123 minutes, radio, 86 minutes, and print, 24 minutes. On the right shows the percent of sexuality in some of these media platforms. There are 75% of sexuality on primetime television, 40% of sexuality in song lyrics, and a study found out of 233 teen social media sites, 10% had sexual content. We can conclude from these statistics that adolescents are being exposed to sexual content. Although Kenya and the United States are vastly different culturally, they share some similarities when it comes to sexual norms and practices. Sex education is taught in schools in both Kenya and United States. Kenya primarily focuses on abstinence education, while some schools in the U.S. teach abstinence and other comprehensive sex education. 93% of Kenya's adolescents and 47% of U.S. adolescents engage in sex. Both have high teen pregnancy rates. Concluding that abstinence education is not as effective, and schools should be teaching comprehensive education, sex education, which includes information about contraceptive use. This will also help decrease the high STI rates seen in adolescents in the U.S., the HIV epidemic in Kenya, and the unplanned pregnancies in both Kenya and the United States. Sexual content is portrayed on Kenya's television 78% and U.S. television 75%. We can conclude from this that parents should watch television with their children to help monitor and explain to them what they are watching. If they are not learning sexuality properly in school, then this may be the only exposure they get, and it may not be a positive one.